Hey everybody, welcome back. Just throwing it out there about Salvador Ramos, and you all probably know who that is by now. This came up quite a bit on a live stream. I did a live stream on Coffee Talk just last night. It came up a lot. People were asking my opinions. I looked into it a little bit more so that I can talk on it a little bit more. Now, I might make a few people upset. If you're new to the channel and you don't know me and how I operate, I talk about things logically and from experience. I don't talk about emotional aspects of things generally, and that makes a lot of people upset because unfortunately people in the West, especially in the United States, are very, very tied up in their feelings on everything, and it clouds their judgment, quite frankly, and it makes them easy to manipulate. That's very obvious, and you should be aware of that. If you're somebody who gets flies off the handle emotional about every news story that comes along, you should probably slow down. Just saying. If you're watching Penny University, the very last video got blocked talking about tracking dogs. If you missed that video, I'm sorry. That's how YouTube does me. I can't talk about tracking dogs apparently. But anyways, Salvador Ramos, and there's a lot of conflicting information as the news agencies stumble over each other trying to get out there faster so that they can get attention, because they want that attention. They want you watching them. That's how they make their ad revenue. Have made a lot of mistakes. I've heard a lot of different numbers all over the place. How many people were shot, how many of them were kids, how many this, how many that. He's an illegal alien. No, he was born in North Dakota. Okay, we'll assume he was born in North Dakota because that's the last thing that I heard, and that he's not actually an illegal alien. Prior to investigating this a little further, when I did the live stream on the Coffee Talk channel, people were asking me what my opinion was about what could have happened, and the first thing that stood out in my mind was looking just at the pictures of this boy, this kid. I've heard he's 17 and I've heard he's 18. I'll throw that out there also. I'm going to assume he was 18 years old. To me, it's still a kid. To the rest of the world, he's an adult. And that he was upset, apparently, about having not graduated from high school or some kind of foolishness. But the first thing that I noticed looking at this boy's photographs, and keeping in mind, if you're not familiar with me or the channel, myself and the person behind the camera, we work in mental health. The first thing that stood out for me was the dull expression on his face in every single photograph I saw of this kid. And some of the photographs are gone now, by the way. You know, I know I pop back and forth, but I'm just trying to maintain my train of thought. Photographs of him in drag have mostly disappeared from the internet because apparently he was trans or thought he was. And they don't want you making that association, so they're hiding those photos now. The other thing that about the pictures, ABC News I think already got caught up doctoring the photos, making him look more Caucasian than Latino, because his ancestry is South American. He's Latin American, if you will. So he's darker than he's been looking in a lot of the pictures. But the dull expression is an expression that we see on clients every day, all of them, because these are clients who are in-house. They live in the facilities and they are very heavily medicated, and that dull expression is the expression of somebody who's on a lot of meds, because it sucks the emotion out of you. You can't emote yourself, so you have this dull-witted expression. And when someone asks you, or so you tell them, oh well, to react, like smile, we're taking your picture, you get this fake, this is what I think a smile is supposed to look like expression, because they're so loaded with medication. I don't know how many meds this kid was on, but I'm sure he was on something, most likely for mood disorders. I'm assuming that he was very emotionally disturbed, if not. And you know, I've heard also that his parents had drug problems. I don't know if that's true. If not a lot of emotional problems, and maybe an actual legitimate physical disorder that cause cognitive problems. although he did have a job. I believe they said he worked at Arby's, but also that he was violent, aggressive, rude. He was a cutter. I've read that, you know, he sliced himself. He did things to hurt or injure people, shooting people with BB guns or picking fights, pushing people, hitting people, things like this. That expresses to me somebody who's very emotionally disturbed, plus his physical appearance, how his face looked, like I said, very dull expression. And so people are sitting there, and this is the angle, this is where they twist your emotions. They waste no time, let no crisis go to waste. Politicians and activists attacking Second Amendment rights now. Of course they're going to do that. And the statements I've seen, somebody was saying something akin to that's because America has a deep-seated gun culture and they worship firearms and all of this. There's a lot of people who are really deep into a gun culture, who really love their firearms, who haven't hurt or even shot anybody. You know, they go to a rifle range or whatever, or they just collect them. They're not looking to hurt someone. This is someone who wanted to hurt people. Now, one of the things that I brought up also when people were asking about, you know, what pops that off in the discussion, the live stream on Coffee Talk, was I explained people who are on a lot of psych medication as being like a water balloon. You attach a balloon to a faucet and you slowly fill it up with water. And that water is the emotional backlash, and the balloon is the threshold. The medication is holding that back to a point. Eventually it'll burst, because instead of training people how to manage themselves and manage their emotion, manage their outbursts, their anger, their depression, whatever, in the West, and again, especially in America, they love dumping pills in you. Our clients have to take blood tests regularly to make sure they don't have liver or kidney failure, because they're at the threshold of how many meds they can take before it kills them, literally. And also, we've seen this with that anger threshold. We have one client, I think you know who I'm talking about, the one who throws haymakers. Mm-hmm. He's quiet. He'll be quiet for months. He sits there like a zombie. All he does is write the same thing over and over again on a piece of paper with a pen. Okay, he's fine. He's not. He's got serious anger issues, but the medication holds it back until it can't. Then he jumps up out of his seat, and this could be months. He starts throwing wild haymakers in the air, throwing punches so hard he's falling on the floor, striking at anybody and anything. He'll hit anything, anybody, because that anger, it has a cap where you can't contain it anymore. And that isn't just with people who have severe mental disabilities that are kept in a facility like this guy. That goes for anybody who's taken a lot of medication to manage themselves instead of learning how to actually manage it in the real world. Now, where's the failure here? The failure is that this is a societal problem. This is definitely a society problem. We're seeing more and more of it now. And again, they're going to attack Second Amendment rights and say, oh, well, we need to ban firearms and we need to do this and that. It was easier to get weapons when I was a kid than it is now, growing up in the 70s and 80s. And we didn't have these kind of problems because society had a different mentality, and it didn't have anything to do with firearms or any other tools. It had to do with the people in society and how they view life. We have a generation, a couple of generations really, of kids coming up now that are so ignorant and selfish and angry, that lack empathy, and you know, psychological training will tell you, and I've taken child psychology, that if you don't start developing empathy by the time you're 8 years old, you could be dealing with a psychopath by the time they're our age. Their emotional states are unstable, they're selfish, they're aggressive, and it's encouraged in our modern society. It's encouraged in the media. You go to public school, which is a zoo. They tell you, oh, you're special and you're wonderful and you can do anything, and it's not the truth. It really isn't, I'm sorry. You know, life is hard out there. You're not going to, oh, if you believe really hard and you really want it, you're going to be the next astronaut or the next president. No, you're not. That takes a lot of freaking work. It takes a considerable amount of work. Look at, and I've used basketball, the NBA, as an example in the past. How many NBA players are there? How many people go into the draft? You know, for every person selected in the draft, they probably have maybe 5,000 applicants. You know, I could be exaggerating a little bit, but you get the idea. Most people are not going to make it. People that are successful on those levels are anomalies in life. And instead of teaching people that it's okay to just have an average life, they're building these kids up with no skills to work with, and then wondering why they're all upset and losing their minds and have emotional problems and are depressed and are killing themselves, stuff we didn't see growing up in the 70s and 80s. Plus, you know, you can't put all of that on the system. If you're going to ignore your children, the system is happy to raise them. Sorry, something was sitting there. The system's happy to raise your kids, and they will do a piss poor job. They are money pits. The public school system is a money pit, but it's your fault too, because you have these kids and you're like, oh, I love my kids and blah blah blah, but nobody's going to admit they don't really like their kids. And I'm sorry, in my experience, most don't. My experience working in being a director of a daycare, being the director of a juvenile correctional facility when I worked for the JJA in Kansas, working with public schools, with private schools, working for school bus companies, Durham and Laidlaw. Most parents, it's an act. I really believe it. They don't really care. And so they have these kids, they get them up in the morning, push them out the door to go to Head Start or public school or whatever. Sooner or later they come home, the kids walk right by, go to a computer or a video game and ignore the parents. They don't see them or interact with them ever. They're like roommates that you barely speak to. But, oh, they're my kids and I love them. No, you're not working with your kids. You're not deprogramming the negativity that goes into them. You're not teaching them. You know, one of the commercials I find the most offensive, and I hate commercials, by the way, is ABC Mouse. You know the one I'm talking about? The ABC Mouse, where she was like, oh, my daughter can count to 20. And I'm like, what? How did that happen? Why don't you know? Why don't you know? Because your kid is learning from a computer program instead of from you, where she should be learning it from. If you're going to throw your kid out to the wild, you're just as guilty as the system that's going to take advantage of them and screw them up with all of these social agendas and all of this misinformation and no emphasis on true learning. And I saw a lot of that working for JJA. I bring it up a lot in discussions, having students 16, 17, 18 years old that are graduating from high school or, you know, close to graduating from high school that have like a 3.8, 4.0 average, honor roll students. These kids can't read the newspaper. They can't operate a can opener. They can't operate, you know, we had, because I don't work there anymore, life skill classes. They couldn't run a microwave properly. They couldn't sweep and mop the floor. They don't know how to fill out a check. They don't know how to fill out a job application. They can't count money. You ever seen 17 and 18-year-olds sitting at a table in tears with little trays from Dollar Tree of the play money, trying to count? I can't do this. Why can't you people leave me alone? You can't count cash. Even illiterate people, when we were growing up, knew how to count their money. You weren't getting over. That's the real seat of the problem, and it's not getting any better. It's not going to get any better until parents take responsibility for themselves and stand up and pull their kids under their wing where they belong. Stop trying to be your kid's friend. Stop trying to buy them off and buy things for them, and just try to get along with them and actually parent, if you even can identify that, because you may not have been parented properly. I wasn't. It took me a long time to figure it out, honestly. I'm not just preaching here. I've been through it. You had a better experience with parenting than I did, honestly. You had a fairly decent upbringing. Mine wasn't. I had an abusive, neglectful mother who didn't care if I lived or died, honestly. And even though I wasn't as bad as her, I still didn't know what I was doing the first time around, raising a child. I got better and better as I learned and realized my mistakes, but you've got to be willing to realize those mistakes and progress. Your kids aren't getting educated properly. The public school and media and society is wanting to raise your kids, and you're letting them. And this is the result. Because again, we didn't see this growing up.
Yeah, and a couple of things that you said. One,
okay.
Society wants to tell you how to feel and how to act in a situation. So it could be a positive or a negative. They tell you this is how you should feel right now, and then people put on this act, and they never ask themselves, do I actually feel it that way? Do I actually care about this? Or do I really care about this, but I'm acting like I don't because society says I shouldn't care about this, or I should hate this, or I should love this, or whatever. And people, and even adults, it's not even kids, because I've seen some adults react to some things, and I'm sitting there like, why are you reacting the way that you're reacting to this situation when it doesn't warrant that type of behavior or that type of emotion? Mm-hmm. And because of that, you'll find 10 kids that were told that you should be angry about this situation, and then when they find that one person that's like, you ridiculous for being that way, they don't know how to act, and they fall to pieces. They have a nervous breakdown. They have a violent reaction because they're not getting the affirmation that they thought they were going to get.
And they don't know how to argue or debate. They think whoever's the loudest or the most vulgar wins the argument. Mm-hmm.
And they don't know how to lose. And, because now you play on a sports team and everybody wins. You don't have a losing team.
Yeah.
So they don't know how to lose. And they don't know how to fail because society tells you that you're a winner at everything. And I know we see that in a workout video. You're a winner just for turning the video on. You didn't work out a bit, but you're a winner.
Yeah,
because you showed up.
You showed up. That's enough. No, it isn't. No, it is not. And
back to that guy, I read some things about him, and it says that he was 18 years old when he bought the guns. And it said that he bought it from a legitimate gun shop. Mm-hmm. But it also says that he's an illegal alien. And if you bought a gun from a reputable, legitimate gun shop, you're not an illegal alien, because if you're an illegal alien, you don't have any form of ID, or you're not supposed to have any ID.
If that's true, because remember, I've also read that he was born in North Dakota, which would make him a citizen.
Right. So it's a lot of conflicting information.
Which is why you need to pull like I said in the very beginning, take your emotions out of it, put it away somewhere, and look at it logically. Slow down.
Yeah, and we live in an emotional society where they got to push emotions on every and anything, and it's like, no, we need to just sit down, pump the brakes a little bit, and think about this, and be emotional probably a little later on, but not right now, because we don't know what the truth is, and you can't believe nothing the media says. And it's just ridiculous. And parents don't parent.
The altering of the photos is proof of that.
But people are going to see that. And, so what? Or they're not going to believe it, and this and that, and it's going to get ridiculous. And parents don't parent their kid. They treat the kids like they do their dogs. How many dogs in our neighborhood, the people got a fenced-in yard, but the dog is still on the chain in the yard,
crying all day and all night.
All night long, but they can say, I got a dog. And it's just like the kid, I got 3 kids, and they're honor roll students, but they can't read
and you don't know
write.
You don't know them at all, not really.
Yeah, and how can your kid be an honor roll student and they can't read or write? And
again, I have literally seen this working for the Juvenile Justice Authority. I've had hundreds of clients like that in that facility.
Yeah.
It's scary.
Yeah.
It's scary, but that's what we're coming to.
But, that's what society has. That's what's accepted. And I remember, and I always think about this, a viewer had said, if you hate your kids if you send them to public school. And when he said that, I was like, why on earth would a person say that? But then I thought about it.
Yeah.
And I looked at it and I compared it, public school and the experience I have from public school and things I've learned after, and how many kids are in public school and can't read or write, and parents don't realize it until later, and then they blame the public school. And I agreed with the person because I understood what they were saying. Maybe the way they said it kind of hit me, but I understood fully what they were saying.
And we get it that, most people, because my thing is you should always homeschool first, and for a second choice, private school, where you at least have some input into what the curriculum is. We get it. There are a lot of people who can't do that. At least deprogram your kids when they come home. Find out what they learn. Talk to them about it. Reinforce legitimate studies. Or when we were kids, it was the 3 R's, they called it.
Yeah, reading, writing, arithmetic.
And arithmetic. I know arithmetic starts with an A, but that was the euphemism that they used. Those 3 things, if you have a good, strong structure with, the rest of it will fall in place if you even need it. How many people are going to be using algebra and trigonometry?
No.
None of them. Hardly anybody, unless they go into the sciences. And then you're not really doing it anyways. The calculator is.
Yeah.
When we were kids, you couldn't use a calculator. You get expelled.
Yeah. You got in a lot
they
of
would
trouble.
send you home if you had a calculator.
Yeah. But I know my parents, my mom made me read to her all the time. My dad taught me how to count money. He would pull actual money out and make me count it. And he would take me to the store, give me money to buy something, and make me say, okay, this is how much change I should get back. I would get my change back, and then I had to count it while we were standing there. That was his method of teaching.
But that's direct interaction. A child learns more from association than they do from pronunciation. They can't learn to be a good person or a smart person out of a book or out of a classroom setting.
But, this is what we have, and the only way to change it is for you to change it.
As an individual, because really you can only change yourself and affect the people that are directly connected to you.
Yeah.
I.e. your children, for example.
Yeah, if it's 4 in your family, it's your 4 and no more.
Because you're not going to change the whole world.
No.
And this is also part of the problem, is that impatience of modern society, that they want instant results. They want instant results. You're not going to get instant results and get quality.
No.
You're not. Okay?
Well, they also tell you that you can change the world. You can't.
No.
I mean, if you honestly look at history, how many significant people were there?
Really?
Really.
Actually
if you really, just think on the top of your head, how many, and then compare it with how many people were on the earth. Right now, what is close to 8 billion?
Yeah.
How many, and I'm not talking about YouTube influencers, Kim Kardashian,
politicians,
and Beyonce and all of them things. I'm talking about people that actually do something, like Gandhi, Martin Luther King, Jesus,
people, I know what you mean.
People like that, people that actually had an impact on society as a whole.
Yeah.
And I mean, in their community, and it's stretched out to around the world. How many people had an impact? The YouTube influencers, Facebook influencers, or whatever you call them, they don't have an impact. Not like they're not changing the world.
Yeah.
You put up some videos and you get 1 million views, but did you change anything?
No. And I don't believe in that influencing bit either, because I think like-minded individuals seek you out. Also, a lot of those systems, they have bots. So you can purchase likes, views, subscribers, all of that, even comments you can purchase now. Yeah. That's why there's that argument with Elon Musk and Twitter, where he did an independent study, and he's like, hey, more than 25% of these accounts are fake. Why am I offering you this much money, and I'm only getting like 75% of what I'm buying? He's got a legitimate argument. It's a legitimate argument. But I know it's a lot to absorb, and like I said, there's a lot of things people may not want to hear. But just think about it. That's all we can ask, is to just try to get people thinking. Remember, you can't change the whole world. You can only change yourself. They love telling you that you're going to change the whole world, and they love blaming the past, because we hear that, oh, it's because of boomers this and boomers that. And you know, every generation has to listen to their peers talking about how the previous generation screwed everything up, but they don't fix, change, or help anything. And right now, that generation is people like Greta Thunberg and what's his name, Hogg. Mouthpieces. They're blah blah blah.
Foul mouthpieces. They're vile and they're vulgar, and that's the type of people.
Now.
Yeah, that's the type of people that wants to rule the world. They want to be your next prime ministers and presidents and whatever other heads of states they are. That's what they want to be.
Yeah.
Vile, vulgar.
They're not going to fix or change anything.
No.
They're not.
No, they're going to just say the next thing that's trending.
And blame our generation.
Yeah.
Or whoever was before us. It's like Greta Thunberg says, it's, you know, you stole my childhood. No, Greta, you sold it.
Yeah, you sold it for fame and fortune, for some trinkets.
I had shown it in a video some months ago, because they had a picture of her and her mother sitting in their office, and the office chairs looked really unique, and I looked them up, and they sell for $10,000 a piece. Do you own a $10,000 office chair? They had 2 of them. Think about that.
Yeah.
They'll let that sink in just a little bit. But it's a lot to unpack. It's a lot to unpack. We invite you to unpack it with us. If you have any thoughts, feel free to post your thoughts in the comment section down below. If you saw random cat or dog images, they are strays that we help to take care of. We take the pictures ourselves, and it actually helps with YouTube's uploading algorithm, although it didn't help with the last video on Penny University. Please do give the video a thumbs up, share it if you can, subscribe if you're new, all that good stuff. If you want to help the channel out or help out the strays, there are links for that down below. Every little bit helps, and we sure do appreciate it. And if that's it, then what more can I say but stay frosty, folks, and thanks for watching.